Okay. Va'ata tetzaves b'nei Yisrael. And you, who's the you? Moshe. And you, Moshe, you should command the Jewish people. And the parsha begins with making oil for the menorah. And the oil had to be extra, extra pure. It was literally the grapes, the first squeeze, the drops that came out, that was used for the menorah. Whatever came afterwards was used for other things, like for the korbanot, the mincha, stuff like that. But for the menorah, it had to be kosis lamor, pure, the purest of the pure oil. And then va'ato, and you, Moshe, bring Aaron, your brother, and his children, and enlisted children, and we're going to make for them clothing. So there's an obvious question that everybody talks about, and there's a dozen answers to the question that is given, and that is, why in Parshas Tetzaveh we don't have Moshe Rabbeinu's name? His name is not in the Parsha. It's left out.
No name in Parasha.
No name. Now, how many times does that happen? In the entire Torah, how many times do you have a Parsha, a complete Parsha, Sedra, without Moshe Rabbeinu's name? Do you have any examples? Well, we know all of the book of Bereshis, right? Because he wasn't born yet.
Yeah.
So you can't bring proof from that. But the answer is every Parsha has his name. In Sefer Devarim, there are a few that don't. Re'eh, Shoftim, Kiseitse, Nitzavim. Because the book of Devarim, Moshe was saying, Eila ha-Devarim, these are the words of Moshe. So Moshe never says, and I said this, Moshe said this. You know, it doesn't fit into the way the psukim are written. But since the birth of Moshe in Shemos, until the end of Bamidbar, Matos Maseh, those books, Shemos, Vayikra, and Bamidbar, every parsha has Moshe's name. Because over and over it says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemo. Not this week. It's left out. So there are many answers that are given. I'll give you one simple example. Every year when we read Parshas Tetzaveh, it almost falls out on the yortzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. So he died. Zayin Adar was this week. So his name is left out, so we all feel the loss. Every year we read Parshas Tetzaveh, you don't find his name. Where is he? He's gone. Oh, it's his yortzeit. Which raises a very interesting question. This year we have two Adars.
Yeah.
Adar 1, Adar 2. If a person has a yortzeit in the month of Adar, when there are two Adars, which Adar does he keep for his yortzeit?
Second one.
Okay. You all answered that because you're Sephardi. And according to Sephardi, you keep the second one. According to Ashkenazi, we keep the first one. And our proof is Moshe's yortzeit comes out the first Adar. He's not written in Parshas Tetzaveh. So what do some people do? Some people keep both. Remember, there's nothing wrong with keeping both. You light a candle, the first Adar and the second Adar. You say Kaddish, the first Adar and the second Adar. You're not making any brachot. You're not doing anything wrong. So if you don't know, you keep both. That's fine. But Sephardim generally keep the second Adar. Ashkenazim keep the first Adar. Purim falls out in the second Adar. But that has nothing to do with the two Adars. That's because Purim is close to Pesach. There's a connection between Purim and Pesach, so we keep that together. Otherwise, but that's a difference in Ashkenazim and Sephardim. It's also interesting, when we mourn the loss of a person, nowhere does it say that for a parent, your avelut lasts for 1 year. It always refers to it as 12 months. So, for example, if a person's yortzeit is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, this year, all the restrictions would end Rosh Chodesh Sivan. After Rosh Chodesh Sivan, they can go to weddings, they can go to bar mitzvahs, they can buy clothing, and then the yortzeit is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. That means when you count avelut, you don't count a year, because this year has 13 months. We count 12 months. And in halacha, it always refers to it as 12 months. So that's one answer, very simple answer.
This year's 13 months.
This year we have
Other.
two others, 13 months. Rabbeinu Bachai gives a different answer. Next week, by the sin of the golden calf, Moshe prays on behalf of the Jewish people. So Moshe says to Hashem, either you forgive them, or take my name out of your book. Because Hashem said to Moshe, I'm going to destroy them, and I'm going to start over with you. And Moshe says, no thank you, I'm not interested. Not only am I not interested, but either you forgive them, or just forget I was born. Just erase my name. And Hashem forgave them in the end. Okay, so Hashem forgave them in the end. However, Moshe made like a threat, right? If you don't forgive them, erase my name. The Gemara says when the tzaddik says something, even if it doesn't come true, it comes true anyway. So Hashem says, okay, I'm not going to erase your name from my entire Chumash, but one parsha you lose. What was that? That's okay, it's interesting. What's also interesting, is that there was a point next week when Hashem says to Moshe, okay, I'll forgive the Jewish people, but you know what? This closeness with me is not going to work. They're going to get me angry. I'm going to destroy them. You know what would be better? We have distance. And as a liaison between the two of us, between the Jewish people and Hashem, let's have an angel in between, a malach. Who was the malach Hashem suggested? Michael, the guardian angel of Bnei Israel, Michael. What was Moshe's reaction to that? Moshe said, what?
Not interested.
Not interested. Moshe said right away, he says, not interested. Take your malach, goodbye, I'm not interested. We're going to have a relationship directly with you. Not you, I don't want to see that Michael around at all. Now it's interesting. Michael equals numerically how much? Sfardim know
101.
101. Ashkenazim don't know this. You get an aliyah, you pledge 101. No, we don't do that. We pledge chai, or 2 times chai. 101. How many psukim in this week's parsha? 101. What is the name given to the siman? Michael. So Parshas Tetzaveh has 101 psukim. The code name in the end is written Michael, and that's what Moshe said to them. You know what? You want to put Michael in place of me? That's good for 1 week. Ain't going to continue. Not interested. And Michael never came back. The next time Michael shows up is by Yehoshua. Right before the battle for the city of Yericho, Amalek comes, and that's Michael. For the 40 years they're in the desert, Michael respects Moshe's request, doesn't show up. Not many of you can tell Malachim to get lost, and they get lost. You see, Moshe was able to do that. So I find that to be very, very interesting. The Torah says something interesting. The Torah says this week is all about Aharon and the children and the clothes of the Kohen and the Kohen Gadol. Originally, who was supposed to be the Kohen Gadol? Moshe. But he lost that. He argued at the burning bush, and Hashem said, okay, Moshe, you'll be the Levi, Aaron will take over. So, if we're talking about the fancy clothes of the Kohen Gadol, maybe mentioning Moshe's name would be disrespectful. So Hashem leaves it out. What I find fascinating is a little bit different. If you're Moshe, you say to Hashem, okay, Hashem, I got it. I argued with you, you got angry at me, I'm not the Kohen Gadol anymore. So who did you choose? Aaron. Was that the best choice? Look at the golden calf. After the golden calf, Moshe should have said to Hashem, you know what? Aaron is not the best choice either. I think you're better off coming back to me. And that's what people do. In politics, when you're vulnerable, what's the first thing that happens? They stab you in the back. Now, I understand the Bukharin community doesn't understand politics. You have no politics. You're very fortunate. Baruch Hashem, you would never have that in the community. But Moshe could have done that, right? Moshe could have said to Hashem, when Aaron was exposed, Moshe could have stepped in and says, okay, let's go back to the original plan. He never said that. Moshe was thrilled that Aaron was the Kohen Gadol, and Aaron was thrilled that Moshe was the Navi Hashem. And never did Moshe say to Hashem, I want it back, Aaron is not worthy. And never did Aaron say to Hashem, I should be the leader, not Moshe. Okay? And because of that love that these two brothers had, Aaron wore a special breastplate that literally communicated with Hashem like Moshe did, peh. Aaron could ask Hashem, is it going to snow today? And Hashem would answer him, yes or no. It wasn't in a dream, it wasn't a riddle. They had some very fascinating tools in their belt. Why? Because they never, ever tried to replace one another, maneuver against another, try to use their position in any way. It's a fascinating love they talk about of Moshe and Aaron. Fascinating respect they had for each other. The Ben Ish Chai says something fascinating. He says that when Moshe said, erase me from your book, he used the word misifracha, your book. He breaks it up into two words, Sefer Chaf, book 20. Tetzaveh is the 20th parsha. Bereshis, Noach, Lecho, you count down, number 20 is Tetzaveh. So Hashem said, Moshe, you said erase me from book 20, that's Parshas Tetzaveh, I'll do what you say. That's what the Ben Ish Chai says. He had it worked out to a science that he knew exactly what it was. Now, we talked about leadership. I once told you this story. I want to tell it to you again anyway, because it's a fascinating story. You know, in Washington, when we talk about leadership, it's always about me. Every person in Washington, who's the most important person to them is themselves. You know, it's their name on the banner. It's their, I'm the best president that ever was. I did more on immigration than anyone. It's always about me. There was a famous story with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Let me tell you the story. In Israel, and in some shuls here in America also, when they read the Haftarah, they read it on parchment. Have you ever seen that? That means here you read the Sefer Torah on parchment. But the Haftarah, you just read from a Chumash, right?
No, parchment also.
On parchment also, you have scrolls?
Yeah, scrolls.
You have 12 different scrolls. You have all for Yoshua,
It's a small, it also has a scroll, it's a parchment scroll.
It's like a Sefer Torah. And you read it without dots and without nekudos.
No, with dots.
With
dots
dots.
and nekudos.
It has dots and nekudos. Okay. In the Ashkenazi, it's written like a Sefer Torah, without dots and without the notes. So you have to memorize it like you do. So there was this bar mitzvah kid, he's 13 years old, and he prepares a whole year of the Haftarah. It was a big Haftarah, and he had difficulty, it wasn't easy for him, and he prepared this whole year for the Haftarah. A week before his bar mitzvah, the father is speaking to the rabbi of the shul, and the rabbi says, I hope your son prepared the Haftarah. He says, yeah, he worked the whole year on it. He says, it's a special Haftarah this week. Because when Rosh Chodesh falls out on Sunday, the Shabbos before has a different Haftarah. So the father says, what are you talking about? No, you prepared the regular Haftarah. He says, well, that's the wrong one. Well, he can't learn the new one. Machar Chodesh is a very long one, and it's not easy. He can't do that in a week. I mean, the kid was devastated. It's his bar mitzvah. He prepared a whole year to read the Haftarah. He wasn't reading the Torah. Now he's being told he prepared the wrong one. It's not his fault, but that's what he's told. So the father went to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who was like the Gadol Hador, the posek, the authority in Israel, the very well-known person. And Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said, after he heard the situation, he says, listen, tell your son he can read the regular Haftarah in Shul. I give him permission. It's only a custom to read the other one, so we won't do the custom this year. He'll only read that one. Now, this shul was an hour away from Rabbi Auerbach's home. Rabbi Auerbach had a shul right next door to him. This was a shul an hour away, someplace else in Yerushalayim. Right. So it was an hour away. Come Shabbos morning, and Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is in the shul. The father comes in, and there's the Rav. Rabbi Auerbach is in the shul. He's a man in his 70s, maybe early 80s. He walked an hour on Shabbos morning to get there. The father is shocked. The father says, Rabbi, how come you came? It's an hour walk. It's very difficult. Why did you come? He says, last night I was thinking about it. Tomorrow you're going to say to the rabbi of that shul and everybody, oh, I asked a question to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. They said, read the regular Haftarah. What do you think they're going to say to you?
No.
He never said it. You made it up. He didn't understand the question. You didn't understand his answer. Because which shul is going to substitute the Haftarah and break the custom? Nobody. And you're simply going to say, you spoke to me, they can't call me to confirm. So it's going to be a nightmare. Your son is going to be embarrassed, and they're not going to let him do it anyway. They're going to make a big tumult. So I had only one choice. I have to be here, so when we tell them, I'm right here, they can ask me. No one will. He walked an hour, which is an hour there, and an hour back, for a man in his 80s, in Yerushalayim. It's not an easy walk. Sometimes there's hills and the stone. Why? Because that's leadership. That's leadership when they don't think about themselves. That's when they think about everybody else. I saw very interesting. It says, Va'ata and you. So there's a sefer, the Yalkut Reuveni. The last word, last week in Teruma, is the word nechoshes, copper. He says, nechoshes represents Moshe's neshama. They say Moshe's neshama was a gilgul of two people, Noach, Nun Chet, and Shes, Adam's third son.
Yeah, the shit.
Right? So, Nechoshes, Ata. Moshe, you're Nechoshes. Why? Because Noach never defended the Jewish people, so you're going to be Mechaper. You're going to be the tikkun for that. Moshe always defended the Jewish people. So he was that. The Chassam Sofer brings down a Gemara in Megillah. Very interesting. He says Moshe had 10 names. He was called Tov, Tuvia, Yedidya, Yekutiel, Avigdor. He was called Avi Socho, Avi Zanoach, Avi Gedor. He had 10 different names.
But not
Right?
more.
Moshe was just one of the names, and the main name that we know him by, Moshe, was given by the daughter of Paro. But his mother gave him a name, his father gave him a name, his brother gave him a name, his sister, everybody gave him names. You know? he literally had plenty of names, but we know him as Moshe. The Gemara says 3 of the names start with the word Avi, father. Why? He was the father of Nevuah. He was the father of Chochmah, of Seir. He was the father of Torah. That's what the Gemara says. Chassam Sofer says he was a father of something else, Shalom, peace. Why? Because he made peace between the Jewish people and Hashem. Which was interesting. Aharon was the peacemaker amongst people. And Moshe says, okay, Aaron, you're in charge of making peace between people. I'll make peace between the Jews and God. You know, they each took their own area. He says the word nechoshes stands for Nevuah, Chachma, Shalom, and Torah. The 4 titles that Moshe had, that was the word nechoshet. Moshe was the nechoshet. He was the father of these 4 things. It's interesting that the Bigdei Kahuna, the clothes of the Kohen, cost money, and they always had to be replaced. If they got dirty, they never washed them. He says the guy that was in charge of teaching us how to make these clothes was Moshe. Why? Because when they came to mitzvos or money, Moshe showed mitzvos were more important. In Egypt, everybody was busy collecting money, and Moshe was taking care of Yosef. Moshe took care of mitzvos, everybody else ran after the money. So a lot of the things that involved a choice between mitzvos and money, Moshe took care of. Moshe was the one for the mitzvah. Now, let's go a little bit further on a little bit of a deeper level. And at some point I'll tell you a joke that I saw on the Jewish press. But let's go to a little bit of a deeper level. In this week's Parsha, we have the menorah. The menorah are candles, lighting candles. Candles represent 2 things. When we light a candle, it often represents a person's neshama, right? Right? Nishmas Odom. We light a yortzeit, we light a candle, right? Nishma, neshama, ner neshama. The other thing a candle represents is, well, to the sun, is mitzvos, Torah and mitzvos. Because it says, ki ner mitzvah, this candle represents the mitzvah, but Torah or. Hashem says something very interesting. Why do I want you to light the menorah? I'll tell you why. You keep my candle, my Torah, and I'll keep your candle safe, your neshama.
Oh, nice.
So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. We light this menorah in the Mishkan. Hashem doesn't need the light. It's not for light. So Hashem says, I'll make you a deal. There are 2 candles in the world. The Torah represents candles and your neshama. You keep mine and I'll protect yours. Simple thing. That's what we do. We do Torah and watch it. Now, the Yetzer Hara plays tricks on us. Let's understand how the Yetzer Hara works. Not so much today, but years ago. Comes Shabbos. The Yetzer Hara says, you can't keep Shabbos. Why? It's the busiest day of the week. In the business, it's the busiest day. You need to work. You need to make money. You have to make a living. Tzedakah. You can't give tzedakah. You need to save the money to buy a new car, or to buy clothes, or to buy a house. You can't afford to do both. So Hashem says, no. Shabbos, mitzvos, Torah are all candles. You know what I can do with a candle? I can take a candle and I can light 100 candles. Is my candle smaller now? No, it's the same. That means a candle is an unusual item. It doesn't get diminished because I lit another candle. If I'm learning Torah and I teach you Torah for an hour, after the hour, do I have less Torah in me? No. I can share it with you. I can share it completely with you, and yet I'm not diminished. You gain, I don't lose. Right, I'm not losing. He brings an example down. He says, imagine a guy is walking on Shabbos. In the olden days, there was no Eruv. A guy is walking on Shabbos. He finds a bag full of money. What does he do? I can't take the money. It's Shabbos. The money is muktzah. I can't carry or violate Shabbos. The Yetzer Hara, he's in your head. He says to you, what are you talking about? That's $100,000 minimum there. If you take that money, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Oh, but I can't violate the Shabbos. Forget about the Shabbos. You'll violate one Shabbos, but with that money, you'll be able to keep 100 Shabbosim. You'll keep 1,000 Shabbosim. Just think, you'll have so much money, you will never have to work on Shabbos again. Every Shabbos is a challenge. I have to work. Let me take this one time I violate Shabbos for 10 minutes, I'll be able to keep 1,000 Shabbosim afterwards. You give in, you take the money, you come home, you put it aside. Saturday night after Havdalah, you run, you open up the bag, and you realize all the money is counterfeit. What did you gain from your experience?
What do you mean counterfeit?
Is that real money?
Подделка,
It's fake money.
фальшивый.
It was a bag full of fake money. It wasn't real money.
Do you still get the Avera?
You still get the Avera, and you don't get the reward.
But you don't get the money.
You don't get the money. So he says that that's really what it is. So often, when it comes to doing Averot, so often we think we're going to benefit long term and we'll still remain good and everything will be fine. But in the end, very often we lose. We don't gain. That means we have to realize that by the Averot that we do and the things we violate, they don't always benefit us. I'll give you an example. There's a famous story with a Ponovitch Rav. Ponovitch is a yeshiva in Bnei Brak. It was named Ponovitch after a city in Europe. Right? I was in Ponovitch. It's a small little town. It had a small little yeshiva. But when the war broke out, the yeshiva was destroyed. Of course, now it's a bakery, believe it or not. But and I was there. You can see a big sign and a little sign. This is the original Ponovitch yeshiva. It's a bakery. It's a restaurant, a little coffee shop, whatever it is. What? No. But we were there. I saw it. I went to visit it. But the Ponovitch Rav came to Israel. He had to raise money to build his yeshiva. So he would travel the world over, and he would travel to Frankfurt, and he would stay at the house of Rav Yaakov Rosenheim. Rav Yaakov Rosenheim was a very wealthy person, very well-known person. He was one of the founders of the Agudas Yisrael. Now, Rabbi Rosenheim said to the Ponovitch Rav, he says, Rebbe, to go to shul in the morning and collect $1 here, $1 there, $5 here, $5 there, that's beneath you. You're a Rosh Hashiva. That's not respectful. Let me tell you what I want to do. I'm going to set up appointments for you with some wealthy people. And you'll go to their home, and they'll give you a nice donation. I'll collect the nickels and dimes. I'll arrange for you to meet some wealthy people in their homes. No problem. He goes around making appointments. One wealthy person says to him, I will gladly give a nice check to the rabbi. but I'm leaving town tomorrow morning by train, and I have no time tonight. But I'll tell you what, my train leaves tomorrow at 9 a.m. If the rabbi comes to the train station at 8:45, I'll give him a check. Okay, no problem. Agreed, tomorrow morning, 8:45, at the train station. Got it.
Why not this night? It was Saturday?
He was busy that night
Oh.
too. Okay, comes the morning. So the Ponevezher Rav said, I'll get up at 7. I'll daven at the 7 o'clock minyan. I'll be finished by 5 to 8. And I'll get to the train station plenty of time. As fate would have it, he overslept. He didn't get up 5 to 7. He got up 5 to 8. So now, what should I do? If I go to the 8 o'clock minyan, it'll be finished at 5 to 9. By the time I get to the train station, it'll be too late. But I don't have to go to the minyan. I can daven at home. If I daven at home, it takes me 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I have plenty of time to make it to the train station. But I always daven with a minyan. But this is money for your yeshiva. After all, supporting the yeshiva, tzedakah, is the greatest mitzvah. He had a rule. If the voices in his head kept convincing him, don't go to the minyan, skip the minyan, because it's more important to collect the money, he knew that the minyan was the right answer. It means the Yetzer Tov, the good voice, only says it once. The other voices say it 100 times. So if the voice in your head is over and over and over again, giving you 10 different reasons why, you know that's the wrong answer. But that was his personal approach. So you know what? He went to the minyan, and he finished at 5 to 9. He runs to the train station, gets to the train station like 9:20. Of course, by the time he gets there, the train is long gone. Train is gone. Train left at 9 o'clock. So he sits down, because he was running, he's tired, he sits down. The next train is not till 10 o'clock. He sits down, figuring, okay, it wasn't meant to be. 5 minutes later, this rich guy walks in. And he says, Rabbi, you waited for me. I feel so terrible. Here, I'm going to double my donation.
Why? Because he was late.
So the rabbi says, no, but no, you don't understand, I was late. He says, no, I got delayed and I didn't have a way to reach you. I was going to take the 9 o'clock train. I took the 10 o'clock train. I'm so happy you waited for me. I want to double my donation out of respect to you for waiting for me. So here, had he davened by himself, and had he gone to the train station, and had he not showed up and the train left, he would have gone home, he would have gotten nothing. But he davened in the minyan. And he thought he missed the train, and he thought he missed the guy. And he got double for his effort, because he did what was right. So the Ponevezher Rav said, in life, he says, whenever you do what's right, you never lose. You just don't lose when you do the right thing. They bring down a famous story with the Stipler. Now, the Stipler today is Reb Chaim Kanievsky. This was with his father, Reb Yaakov Kanievsky. He was a big tzaddik. He was in the Russian army. I mean, they had drafted him into the Russian army. He couldn't get out of it. His father. And, one day on Shabbos morning, the soldiers come to his house and say, okay, target practice. Come with me. It's Shabbat. I'm not going to do target practice. So they drag him to the field, to the shooting field, and the Russian officer there, gives him a gun, and he says, okay, target practice. He says, it's my Sabbath. I'm not going to do target practice. So he pulls out a gun and he says, listen, a gun is going to get fired today. It's either your gun or my gun. But a gun is going to get fired. Now, you don't have to give up your life for Shabbat. If someone holds a gun to your head, you can violate Shabbat. But the Stipler said, I'm not going to shoot the regular way. Because, if you have to violate Shabbat, and if you do it with a change, you have to turn on the light, but you use your elbow, it's only midrabanan, it's only rabbinical. Yeah. So he used to shoot with his right hand, so he put a gun in his left hand. And instead of holding the gun straight, he turned it upside down, and instead of closing this eye, he closed this eye, he closed both eyes. In any event, he made all these changes, and he closed, and he just shot, and he hit the bullseye. When the officer saw that this guy was shooting with his left hand upside down with his eyes closed, and he hit the bullseye, he says, get out of here, I'm not going to deal with a guy like you, and then he sent him home.
Good.
That's how he got out of the Russian army. He brings down the story a lot, but that's how he got out of the Russian army. By trying not to violate Shabbos, he got out of the Russian army. Rav Zilberstein in this book brings down a fascinating story. He says there was a kid who on Shabbos they were in shul, and I guess some stranger gave him a candy. So he ran to his father and he said to his father, Abba, is this candy kosher? His father looked at it, it wasn't a candy. It was a poison pellet for rats. And had the kid simply candy, put it in his mouth, who knows what could have happened. But Rav Zilberstein says the father trained the kid that you don't accept food from a stranger unless you know it's kosher. So because the kid was trained to ask, is this kosher? His life was saved. He says that's what it is. Keeping Torah is an amazing thing. It saves your life. You train a person to check if it's kosher. The next story I found to be an amazing story. You got to listen to this story. It's an amazing story. The former chief rabbi of Israel was Rabbi Lau.
Lau?
Lau, L-A-U, Rabbi Meir Lau. His son is the chief rabbi today. Rabbi Lau was a Holocaust survivor, a very wonderful person, very warm person, very loving person. He once gave a Seder, a Pesach Seder, to hundreds of soldiers, Israeli soldiers. And he was leading the Seder. And he starts reading, Holach Ma'ani, this is the poor man's bread. And at the end he says, Hashta Hocha, today we're here. Lashona Haba, next year we should be in Israel. Today, Hashta Avdi, we're slaves. Next year we should be free. One of the soldiers raised his hand. They were not religious soldiers. One of the soldiers raised his hand and says, Rabbi, I don't understand. I was born in Israel. I lived my whole life in Israel. I'm reading a book, and the book says,
Next year.
today we're here, next year I should be in Israel. It's not relevant. It doesn't apply to me, right? If on page 1 the book is not relevant, what am I doing here? The whole book is not relevant. I might as well go home. He's at a Seder. Going to be for hours reading the Haggadah. And he says, already in the first paragraph, it talks about people who don't live in Israel. I live in it. It doesn't apply to me. The whole book doesn't apply to me. He's like, you see this Chumash? Doesn't apply to me. What do I need it for? Everybody's eyes are on Rabbi Lau. Hundreds of people.
What's he going to say?
What's he going to answer? It's a fascinating point. Doesn't apply to me. Listen to what Rabbi Lau said. Rabbi Lau said, on Yom Kippur, I've davened with the greatest of people. I've davened with Rabbi Shachan Ponovich. I davened with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. I davened with Rabbi Vadri Yosef in his shul. I had the privilege of davening with the greatest leaders of the Jewish people. When it came to the al-chet, the sins you committed, these people were crying for all the different list of sins as they were listing the different sins. I said to myself, what's going on over here? Rabbi Vadri Yosef is talking about all these averot. He never did any of those averot. Not only did he do it, he never thought of doing it, let alone doing it. And he's crying, I did this avera, this avera, this avera, and he's hitting himself and hitting himself. This is a day you're supposed to be honest with yourself. You're supposed to tell the truth. And on Yom Kippur, he's confessing to all these sins that he never dreamt of doing, let alone he never did. The answer is, Rabbi Vadri Yosef understood that when he's davening, it's not about him. Again, this is not Washington, D.C. It's not about me, me, me. He represents all Jews all over the world. And what he's saying is, Hashem, if there's any Jew anywhere in the world that did these sins, I'm asking you forgive them. So he said to the soldier, you think this is about you? You're lucky you live in Israel. It's not about you. When you say today we're here, all the Jews who are in Galut, who are in the Soviet Union, who are in Africa, who are in South America, who are not as lucky as you. You know what we say? Next year you should be with me in Israel. This book is not about you. It's about all Jews. And if you don't have the view that every Jew is connected to every Jew around the world, you don't understand Judaism. That's a fascinating answer. That's a powerful answer. He says, when Moshe Rabbeinu got up, and Hashem said, the Jewish people committed an Aveira, they sinned the golden calf. You know what Moshe could have said? Ha! Wasn't me. I wasn't there. I'm safe. No problem. Good luck. You're on your own, guys.
It's the
That's their problem, not me. You know, I didn't do it. That's not what Moshe said. Moshe right away says, forgive them. And if you don't forgive them, don't think you can come to me and start over. I'm not interested. I'm with them. But Moshe, you weren't there. It's not your fault. It's not about fault. That's leadership. Leadership is when you see the world as bigger than just you. And what happens to him affects me. And if he's in trouble, I'm in trouble. And if he needs help, I need help. That's leadership.
Not young, but I know a lot of people who just think about themselves.
Right.
Not about other people's.
I call that Washington, D.C., but that's just me.
Politicians, huh?
Politicians. You know?
Even the small family, it's like
Correct.
you see a lot of
Correct.
not right things.
You know, it was an interesting, at dinner tonight, I was asking my wife a question, just a question, about a certain family, why their children don't help the parents. The parents need help, and why the children don't help. And my wife's answer was, you'd be amazed how many families don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
You will-
And I said to her, I said, because you know, I come from a very close family. I have 3 sisters. Maybe growing up, I didn't want to talk to them so much. But now that I'm older and a little smarter, or a lot smarter, I recognize the value of family. Family is family. And I cannot imagine, you know, between me and my children, my grandchildren, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, you know, we're a large family, but we're a close-knit family. None of us could ever be in trouble and be alone. We would never be alone in the world, no matter what. No matter how bad it's, we're never alone.
yeah.
And my wife says, well, you know, you're not the rule, you're the exception. Most families they just don't talk to each other. And that was scary. I found that to be a little bit scary. But what can I tell you? I'll share with you an interesting Baal HaTur. Aaron wore the Choshen, right? He wore the Choshen. So the Choshen had stones on it, and he could ask questions. The Choshen represents justice, right? Justice. So the Baal HaTurim said something very interesting. He says, just like a Bet Din only sits during the daytime, the Choshen only worked during the daytime. It did not work at night. If you would ask questions at night, it didn't answer you. Only during the daytime. Which I found very interesting. And Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank says, it makes sense, he says, because the clothes of the Kohanim had shatnez, was linen and wool together. And you could only wear it when you did the avoda, and you could only do the work, the avoda, during the daytime. Once it came nighttime, they took off these special clothes, they wore other clothes. So he says, at nighttime, the Beis HaMikdash was closed. It was not working. So therefore, the Choshen was restricted.
But they ate the korban?
What?
They
They ate the korban during the day, and they could eat it at night, but they didn't bring any korbanot on the mizbeach at night. They could burn the leftovers.
leftovers.
Leftovers, but nothing else was there. Now, I saw it was very, very interesting. The stones, right, had the names. Reuven, Shimon, Levi had all the names. What did they do? They took like a pencil, and they wrote the name Reuven on the stone. Then they took the worm, the shamir, and they put it on the stone, and he traced the letters. Because they weren't allowed to engrave, they couldn't use metal tools. So they wrote on the stones the names, and the worm ate away the lettering, and that's what lit it up.
Worm?
a worm. It was called a
I don't know
shamir.
where to
Ah, I tell you.
Right, if he followed the writing, the letter
how it's from Hashem.
from Hashem. Now, they had the names of the 12 Shvatim, but they didn't have all the letters of the alphabet. They were missing the letter Ches and the letter Tes. So then they put the names Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov on. That got on the letter Ches from Yitzchak. But they didn't have the letter Tet. So at the bottom they wrote Shiftei Yeshurun, the tribes of Israel. And that got them the letter Tet. Otherwise they didn't have all the letters. It's interesting, Yaakov's 12 sons, if you look at all the letters, they're missing Chet and Tet. Chet, there's no sin.
No sin.
No sin.
Wow.
Now,
What
They
about the stones on the shoulder?
okay, so let me tell you about the stones on the shoulders. I photocopied something that you might find
I
interesting.
couldn't find any explanation of the
Okay.
Rashi of this.
Well, there's as follows. On this shoulder
6 names.
were 6 names that stood in Har Grizim. Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali. If you add up all the letters, it equals 25. On this shoulder was Yisachar, Zvulun, Gad, Asher, Yosef, Binyamin. You add up all the letters, it was 25. 25 and 25 is 50. Kohen, Chaf, Hey is 25. Times 2, Nun is 50. So 25 and 25 is 50. In the Pasuk, Shema Yisrael, and Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso, both psukim have exactly 6 words, 6 and 6. And if you count up the letters, there's 25 and 25 in each
Oh
pasuk.
my goodness, huh? Everything like puzzle.
Everything is like a puzzle that literally fits
Oh,
in
yes, everything's.
in like a cube, like the Rubik's Cube. So it was very fascinating how it was. Now the Kohen carried the 12 tribes on his shoulders because whatever he did represented all the
All
Jewish
of
people.
them.
Okay?
But he has here also.
And here also. But there's a big difference when you carry the weight on your shoulders
Yeah.
and you carry the weight on your heart. He needed both. He needed to carry their responsibility, but he needed to feel their
Heart,
heart, their pluses and minuses.
left out.
Aharon had that heart. Everybody was special to him. He loved everybody. You know, only a Kohen that could carry it on his heart could do that. It was interesting. When Eli HaKohen read the letters the wrong way with Chana, it was a sign he was no longer going to be the Kohen Gadol. He was going to be replaced, and he was. The one who replaced him was Eviatar. Eviatar was very loyal to King David, to David HaMelech. At the end of his life, Eviatar betrayed David, joined the camp of Yoav, was going to replace David, wasn't loyal. How did David know this? Because he once asked him a question, and the Urim and Tumim didn't answer. He knew right away something was wrong. And he replaced him with Tzadok. Everybody that betrayed David got killed. Eviatar did not get killed. David said, I can't kill a Kohen. A person who wore the choshen, the breastplate, I can't kill. Hashem will take care of it. That's not my job. Everybody else he took care of. Shlomo took care of. Not Eviatar. Yeah.
Aviatar was from Kohanim.
He was a Kohen, and his father was the Kohen Gadol that got killed in the city of Nov. And when he ran there and saw his father dead, and knew that Shaul had done this, he took the breastplate off and he brought it to David HaMelech. And David HaMelech says, put it on, let me test it. And when he asked the question, the letters lit up, so David knew. He knew that David was the right king, and David knew that he was trusted as a Kohen. And it worked fine for years. David was king for 40 years. But at the end of David's life, when he asked him questions, it didn't work anymore. He knew he betrayed him. And he replaced him.
He exchanged his mind towards the David.
Yeah, he changed his mind. He felt David was old, we need new leadership. It's not a very common thing. Nadav and Avihu did the same thing. They walked behind Moshe and Aaron, and it says, you know, it's time that the old guys retire and we young guys take over and we know better.
No, Aviatar.
We hear this all the time.
But both the hood was letters. You can see both sides, right?
Correct.
Both
Like a mirror.
Yeah, like a mirror. Both
Right.
sides was the same. It was miracle.
You're talking about you wait till we get to the luchos next week. We're going to find out. Moshe broke the luchos. Who gave him permission? But just wait and see. I'll give you the answer next week. Next week is going to be a hard thing. Listen, we have another few more things. There's another 5 or 10 minutes. Shh. When they dedicated the Mishkan, they brought a korban in the morning and a korban at night. A sheep in the morning, a sheep at night. Every day they brought that. But the way it worked every day was that if they forgot to bring the sheep in the morning, they still brought the sheep at night or vice versa. But the first day, they had to have 2 sheep, one morning, one night. They couldn't miss a beat. So the Brisker Rav says something very interesting. He says, when you start a project, the way you start it sets the tone for the whole, always. You always have to start something the right way. Rav Ruderman, when they built the new yeshiva, he used to be on Garrison Boulevard, they moved to Mount Wilson Lane. He begged the boys, he says, for the first week, when you're in the base medrash, only learn. You want to talk? Step out. Because if in the first week, you spend more time talking about sports and football and baseball, and you don't learn, it will always be that way. You know, the yeshiva is a brand new building. We got to start it right. When Yoshua conquered the first city, Yericho, he said everything in the city should be burnt. Nobody benefits. One person took from it, Achan. He ruined it. It cost him his life. After that, Yoshua never successfully conquered all of Israel. When he died, there were many areas of Israel left unconquered. And in the book of Shoftim, it was a nightmare dealing with all the places that were left over. And the reason is because when it began, it just didn't begin right.
What they put concrete?
Where?
What's this concrete?
Conquer means to do war
Establish.
and defeat.
Established.
Right.
Necessary.
That's, how do you say conquer in Russian?
That's it. No, concrete. That's
Zawai.
Not conquer. To conquer, to you fight and you win.
Yeah, win. Завоевать. Полностью завоевали.
The first city, Yericho, Yoshua says nobody takes anything. Everything gets burnt. Somebody took some gold,
Yeah.
so he ruined it. And it just meant that the way they started,
No trophy.
right,
He said-
no trophies. And because they took trophies, they never conquered all of Israel. There were problems here. Throughout history, they were always plagued with problems. Why? Because the first time, it just wasn't done right. It's just interesting. When you do something right, it sets the tone for the entire thing. Okay, it says over here in our Parsha, wherever it has Aharon's name, it's spelled Aleph, Hey, Resh, Nun. There's no Vav. One time there's a Vav. The first time there's a Vav, the Das Kenim Ibal Tosfa says that when they dedicated the first Korban, Aaron put his hands on it, and his 4 children all put their hands on it at the same time. So it was like, right, it was all together. It was the only time, that's why Aaron's name is Malay, because it means everybody together. They asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky, how is it possible? He says, in those days, the animals were much larger. And because they were much larger, they were able to put it on. Okay. It's interesting, every garment was mechaper different averot. I'll give you an example. The ketonet, which was like the coat, was for murder. The pants, arayot, immorality. The mitznefet, the hat, for gava. The belt, for pure thoughts. The choshed, for justice. The me'il, which was blue, was mechaper for lashon hara.
What's your meal?
Me'il was a coat that they
Coat,
wore
yeah, on top of
that
it.
had little bells on the bottom.
Jingle bell.
Right, and that was because the sound that people make
Yeah.
was mechaper for lashon hara. The tzitz for ga'ava again, and the ephod for avodah zarah. So they once asked Reb Moshe Feinstein, I don't get it. The choshen stands for justice, and it was hooked onto the ephod, which is idol worship. What's the connection between idol worship and justice? So Reb Moshe says that if you're a judge and you think you can change the law and give this guy money that he doesn't deserve and not this guy, it means you don't believe in God. That's idol worship. He says if you're a faker If you're a faker and you don't believe in justice, you don't believe that the Torah is from Hashem and that the rules have to be followed and everything has a purpose, he says, that's idol worship. And that's why they hooked the choshen on the garment, the ephod, which is idol worship. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says that it means that you don't have good midos. If a person doesn't have good midos, it means they have no belief in Hashem. Again, no belief in Hashem is a form of idol worship. So, he looked at these things as being very, very, very important. I'm trying to think what else to share with you tonight. It's already 9:25. The rest is about Purim time. We'll get into a little bit of Purim coming on later on. But you can turn off the tape. I'm going to tell you a joke.